Day of the world's largest fintech fest, Global Fintech Fest, organized by the Internet and Mobile Association of India, along with its sister organizations, Payments Council of India and Fintech Convergence Council, and National Payments Organization of India. The fest is presented by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India and Reserve Bank of India, and supported by Niti Aayog, Startup India and Invest India. We would like to even thank our partners, our supporting partners, CPK, and institutional partners, RBIH, the World Bank, and UNCDF. This session is powered by the Root Mobile. The second edition of the summit, with the theme Fintech Empowering a Global Digital Economy, will provide an in-depth understanding of the latest business, policy, investment, and technology developments within the fintech landscape globally. We welcome all of you for the panel discussion on the Omnichannel Solutions, the need of the hour for the financial services industry. Without further ado, I'm very much pleased to welcome Mr. Sharad Thukral, the EVP and Business Head, Middle East and Africa, Root Mobile, who would be moderating today's discussion. We would even like to welcome our esteemed set of speakers, Mr. Saurabh Chatterjee, the President, Head, Technology, Digital Sales and Marketing, Travel, Bajaj, Allianz, General Insurance, Mr. Mamallan, the Founder, Chairman and Managing Director, Electronic Payment and Services, Mr. Nilesh, Sangoi, the Chief Information Officer, Fincare Small Finance Bank, and Mr. Nitin, Gupta, the Founder and CEO, UNI. Dear delegates, please request your questions on the chat box. The panel may pick up a few in the end and answer to your queries. Over to you, Mr. Thukral.
Thank you very much, Swati, for the kind introduction. Delighted to be part of this discussion. Very good morning to all the panelists and the participants. I'll be the moderator for next 40 minutes or so. A very interesting topic, Omnichannel Solutions, the need of the hour for the financial services. Well, the banking sector is changing day by day, and so is the technology, which is even evolving at a faster pace. I was reading one of these surveys recently, and I remember that 52% of the millennials said they would switch banks for better mobile or digital capabilities, hence implying that customer experience is paramount for enterprise for their business growth. We all have seen banking or financial sector is one such industry where technology implementation is not a novel phenomenon and seen as a very tedious task. I think very simple reason, complex integration, too many systems, ERPs, CRMs, and of course, data security concerns. So the question here is, are financial institutions adopting new technologies to meet the evolving landscape? Or let me try to put it in this way. Does it see omni-channel solutions as an opportunity? Today, emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, omni-channel solutions, marketing automations are fully harnessed by organizations, and actually they are reaping larger value because they are able to connect better in this new digital era world. More and more enterprises are of course exploring omni-channel solutions for the simple reason that they want to reach out to their customers where they are already hooked at, like Viber, WhatsApp for Business, Skype, voice, SMS, email, you name all the communication channel. I think all the enterprises are trying to reach at those channels so that they can engage better with their consumers. So is it the time now that banking sector leaders take this challenge by adopting new technologies in operations and customer service using various forms of digital capabilities? Let's find out from our panel members. I'm sure we all will have many interesting questions. So I request all the participants to feel free and type in their questions in the Q&A box, and we'll have time in the end to take those questions. All right, to start with, my first question to the panel members is how they have seen or witnessed the paradigm shift in the financial services industry. Let's hear your views on how the financial service industry changed or evolved in the last 10 years or so. We can start with maybe Sourabh, you want to take this up?
Sure. Thank you, Sharad, and thank you for inviting me. Hello to all the other panelists. Look, I come from insurance world, so when you said banking, insurance is a very big part of the financial services industry, and we all are aware about the insurance penetration in the country, and with all these steps taken by the government and the different companies, it is still at less than 4%. So there is a big need in the entire Indian population. And from an enterprise standpoint, a lot of things are happening. From a government standpoint, regulator standpoint, a lot of things are happening. But your first point, what you said, the millennials, and not just millennials, what is the expectation from a consumer standpoint today? It's very clear. It is not what was 5 years, 10 years back. There are so many paradigm shifts that have happened, primarily either on the payment space, now on the health stack, a lot of things are happening. And from an insurance company standpoint, we are very clear. If you do not adapt very fast and then go beyond to give that experience to the end consumer, will be falling behind. But one fundamental thing has to be understood from insurance standpoint is insurance companies have been traditionally very good at pricing the risk of the asset, and that is what has worked. But we have not been very good at pricing the individual. This banking has done, a few years back, say maybe 8, 10 years back, but insurance has not yet done. So today we still insure the car, but not the person and the driving behavior of the person who's actually driving the car. So these are from an insurance industry standpoint, this is one of the fundamental things, the move from product to customer, which is happening, and that will help us along the way. I think the second paradigm shift has been seen by COVID on the health side. Right? Now, the health insurance, not just the awareness, but in general, health and wellness has come to the forefront. And as payers in the ecosystem, we are the payers, right? We are from a health ecosystem standpoint, insurance companies are the payers. This is where we are seeing a lot of changes, where not just the consumers are demanding not just hospitalization, but even beyond that, right? Health and wellness as the second part. Therefore, the need of the hour from an enterprise standpoint is not just to adapt, but move very fast on this. And look, I see this as 2 or 3 changes which enterprises are doing, which insurance companies are doing. One is data and insights comes center stage in the entire process. Yes, we do have WhatsApp for business. Yes, we have a lot of other channels. But are these talking to each other to provide that single and equal to one kind of an experience to the consumer today? I don't think that we can say with surety that it is. We do have these channels. They've invested in all these channels, and all companies all across the industry. But is it really giving that personalized experience to the end consumer? This is an area where we'll have to focus on. Second, I do believe both insurance and banking, has to do a lot in terms of their core platform architecture. This is purely from a technology standpoint, but I do believe that, while you can do everything on the consumer layer, if your core is not strong, we know a lot of things can go wrong, right, along the way. The third is, I think the innovation in terms of giving the particular segment. Now, it's not just the urban consumer, right? We are talking about a completely different set of products and services for a tier 2, tier 3, or even beyond that, right? Consumer. The government schemes demand a completely different set of product and experience. I think there is a time for insurance as to be offered as an API, a set of services where the product and the service can be personalized to the end user. And this is increasing. This is increasing. It is not a one size fit all kind of a solution from risk and the solutions that we provide, but it is more very, very personalized. And therefore, we often talk about those cliched terms of, right, banking in a box or insurance in a box. I think the time has come now. There are enough and more use cases. And if we don't adapt, that is it. End of the day, consumer wants, an e-commerce experience. Consumer wants, the payment platform kind of an experience. If insurance and banking companies don't give that, right, don't provide that, I think we will lose the consumer in the longer term. And that's what I believe are the changes.
Thank you, Sourabh. Wonderful inputs. Nilesh, you would like to add something?
Yeah, I think some of this might be repeat of what Sourabh said, but I feel that we are coming to an inflection point where some diverse forces are coming together. Like, I'll give you maybe four such forces. The first one being the tech. The way tech has getting matured, the way smartphone penetration has grown across the status, enter strata of society, and the way the 4G kind of connectivity has come in, the way the computing powers have grown, like with the cloud, etc. The the agility which has come in into the whole ecosystem, the way social has grown, like the WhatsApp and likes of various platforms, microblogging platforms that people are present. So I think each one of that is having an impact in the way we bank, the way we buy insurance or our investments. Everything is getting impacted. That's the tech part. The second part is this whole ecosystem of startups which are coming in, trying to solve point problem. Everybody is focusing on some very small section of a problem, say payment. How do I improve a payment experience, or how do I improve the insurance buying experience? Marketplaces are coming up. So these are with lots of funding coming into this. That is acting as another catalyst in terms of innovation, in terms of multitude of solutions. The third very important one is how the governance and governments have changed the whole landscape in last 10 years, starting with Aadhaar, which started as a digital identity, and then we came with a common, very open payment platform like UPI, going right up to account aggregators, and so many innovations, so many APIs. You could now get the GST details, or the based on the consent, you can get so many details of a consumer to do a better credit underwriting for him. Even the new to the credit customers are able to now get credits and build their credit scores. So again, this is a third force, the very very important force and big enabler which government is building up as a common layer across all the sectors. And the fourth one is the consumers. Like we are getting millions of digital native consumers getting added to the whole ecosystem every month. So people who are very comfortable with all of these, using digital, I think that's the fourth force. So I think many these forces coming together, I think very very exciting times ahead, and lots of innovation is going to happen in this sector.
True, very well said. Let me hear from Mr. Nitin Gupta.
Sharad, I've been hearing everyone, right? And and I'm the fintech side of things. I take point problems and I create magical experiences around those point problems. I've seen the world of insurance closely. I've seen the world of banking closely. I've seen the world of lending closely, right? Till date, these people traditionally, right? The success was the success of these institutions happened because fundamentally the balance sheets were a very important part of the problem statement. But that's not true anymore, right? Balance sheets have become commodity because there are multiple people who are willing to partner to offer balance sheets.
True.
What now matters fundamentally is just the customer and the speed at which customer needs are evolving. If you have not transformed yourself within 6 months, you have lost the race. You are behind, meaningfully behind. The telco players who couldn't transform themselves when Jio entered within 1 year, right? They don't exist today. They don't exist. And which are left, who is going to survive between the remaining two. The speed at which the transformation is happening, the speed at which the consumer is demanding more from their financial service providers. If the transformation takes 12, 24, 36 months, that player is dead in the near future, for sure. And you cannot operate with offering functional needs anymore. ऐसा नहीं हो सकता customer को app चाहिए तो app बना दी. It's not possible that the app will solve that problem. Functionality is bare minimum. You look any of your net banking app, you look any of your mobile banking app, it's functional. And if you don't transform that functional into magical, which is what a fintech fundamentally does, right? I think very soon people will be just reduced to being balance sheet providers to fintechs. That's the truth of the matter. And that's
Very
the
bold
opportunity
statement.
game.
Very bold statement coming from you, and I think I concur with that. Uh, let's hear from Mr. Money. What are your opinions, sir?
Money, you are on mute.
You are on mute, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Sharad, and all the other panelists. And we heard it all. I think it's from everybody. I think it's everyone has their own experiences. And I go not 10 years, much before that. I see it as a three different verticals. One is basically the consumer who is demanding for services, which is very different. And it keeps evolving every day and night. Maybe 10 years before that, I would have seen, I think, the evolution was, the pace was smaller, slower. But now it is much faster than what anybody can think. Even I can't even imagine. Only Nitin can say how faster it is going to be. Okay. He's on the fintech side. So coming back to basically the insurance side or the banking side, I'm from the banking side. So the bankers are the other guys who have the data of these consumers, or other basically players who are coming now, basically interim players who have also got the data, which is basically one of the key elements. You see that the guidelines are coming from for data aggregations as well. So you said, Sharad, in the opening remark, people are moving from one bank to one institution to another because they want services which is different. So I'm not going to talk about all this thing because you're all basically the experts on that field. I'm going to talk about the banking side. Does these banks have those infrastructure to provide these services? None of the banks have. That's a big question mark. Primarily because of that, you have basically the interim players coming in, the aggregators, who actually use the same data from the banking institutions and provide these basically interfaces, which is where we coming like EPS. We are actually the intermediary between the customers on one side and the bank institutions on the other side. The bank doesn't want to invest in the infrastructure, or institution doesn't want to invest in the infrastructure. Nowadays, infrastructure is also not so costly as it was. But to upgrade themselves with the enhancing requirements and evolving requirements of the payment industry and fintech companies, they are not adaptable. They are not mobile and agile, which is one of the reasons these interim players were coming. It happened in every other industry, and this will happen in this industry also. And as you all said, I think middleman always makes more money than actually the customer or basically the guys who is providing those services. So the whole thing will start tomorrow. I think whatever is happening is the infrastructure providers or the omni-channel providers tomorrow, for one institution or a multiple institutions who can basically connect to the customers or the fintech companies and basically just the other side and the institutions on this side. I think this is what going to be the feel of it. What it takes care of is one, the treasury requirement. Nitin said about the balance sheet. The treasury requirement of this institution, which is the primary job of any bank, is lending and basically just accepting deposit, nothing else. Or institution companies will accept basically just premium and provide services. So they will focus on their core competence and services, and these institutions, the mid-layer institutions, infrastructure providers and processing guys, they will give other services, and the customers will be willing to basically change with the time and take services as they do. So it is important basically just this interim players, the infrastructure providers are also required. The fintech companies are there, then the customers are there, and these people are there. And we have a larger role. Fintech companies have a larger role, and customers will be happy, and the banks will be happy. Thank you.
Great. So I think on one side, we clearly have opportunities. I think people mentioned about mobile penetration, which is of course happening and giving opportunities for all the enterprises to penetrate. 4G and 5G aiding to various product and services to be launched, which largely brings in innovation. And I think governance is the key where even the government plays a role. But fundamentally, the challenge which I could sense here is about the core banking network. The core backbone is kind of pretty weak, and I think that's the time, and it's the time where the banking sector has to really invest and look into core solutions so that their backbone is strong. Because even today, a lot of banks kind of are overwhelmed with mundane activities, especially during the month end or quarter end, despite having ERP and other technologies, right? So, anyways, having said this, let's talk about some of the common challenges this industry is facing. I'm sure this industry is no exception. We heard maybe a few challenges, but let's focus more on the kind of real challenges this industry is facing and what kind of role technology can play, what kind of value-added aggregators like Root Mobile, bringing in omnichannel solutions, single API, which makes the integration, which is the core problem for any bank today in terms of implementing solution or even changing their partners. So let's talk about those challenges. So maybe Mani, you would like to start with coming from a pure banking side. What are the core challenges you see? And then maybe we'll talk later about the possible solutions.
Yeah, thank you, Sharad. If you see the core banking compliance was done in 2008 when the Gandhi Committee recommendations were implemented across even the banks and even the cooperative banks. And that was the last leg when the core banking was across all the banking institutions in this country. And from then on, very least has basically changed as far as the core banking data is concerned, where the debit and credit happens. Nothing has changed. Every other thing of services remain outside the core banking. And all of us basically just who have been part of the payment system then, we used to have an interface plugged into every basically channel, depending on which it is a card, cardless, internet banking, and so on and so forth. But imagine, I don't want to take a name of the bank, but I think this is one of the best banks, which was in terms of technology in the early 90s. They had problems in 2020s. And that is a challenge because of the proprietary technology they have started using it. They are not agile and adapt to basically changing requirements of the technology itself. Forget about anything else. The infrastructure has changed, the technology has changed, the requirements have changed, but they have not been able to adapt to the requirements of it. Thereby, everything that they do in terms of processing, giving services to the customer is one part, but within the banking system, processing it, taking care of your basically just demands and assets as well as liabilities, and primarily the basically demand liabilities. And because of which the treasury management has to be different. And because of which the CASA requirements and SLR as well as basically CSR requirements are different. So they have been grappling with that idea of how to manage this whole piece of back-end operations. Forget about the channels you're basically dealing with. The core banking itself has basically become very difficult to manage within the banking system. And I don't want to take any specific name of the banks. The banking system is grappling with the idea of the reconciliation, which they've been doing for the last so many years. A couple of banks have come much more faster than what it is. But between the basically just liabilities and asset side, the gaps are much it's still there, and most of the banks are basically being penalized also for not maintaining those things within their own ecosystem. Thanks a lot. I think there's every receivable or a payable within the payment side at least is within some banking system. So Reserve Bank at a larger pace thinks, okay, it is somewhere within the bank, this bank or the other bank, but within the institution, it is still not reconciled, and that tantamount to a lot of basically just fraudulent problems and so on and so forth. So banking is all about accounting and keeping your money in safe and secure manner, which is basically missing. The core banking is a challenge. If these omni-channel basically things are going to be coming, then you have a unified basically just reconciliation process can be done, so that at the end of the bank knows how much is basically just payable, how much I'm receivable. Thereby they can take care of the treasury requirements depending on the institution itself. And that's a key element to a banking environment as such. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mani, for your inputs. I think you talked largely about the processes and the banking challenges. So I would like to hear from Sourabh, coming from the insurance side of it, and of course, being on more tech-savvy person. I would like to drill down on the actual core problems related to the core systems or technologies which, let's say, you have been managing in your organization. So given a chance to you, assume that you have been given $10 million to upgrade the entire infrastructure and bring in the best technology. So what kind of challenges you see that you would like to address? So would like to hear more about core technology related challenges, and I'm sure Nilesh and Nitin will add on to it.
Sure. I'll add on to it, but I could not help, comment a little bit on what Nitin mentioned, so that is because it was very interesting. So what I agree with him on one point and disagree with him. So I'll just make that quickly before I come to. One is customer is the king, consumer is the king, no questions about it, there is nothing. What I believe is, don't write off large organizations and say, they will only be the balance sheet providers. And I'll tell you the reason. I believe the world is moving towards the ecosystem approach. And ecosystem means there will be collaborative partnerships at every point, because this is a large play, right? There will be, insurance companies and banks would be disrupted from within as well as from outside. And this particularly is the challenge, because it will clearly divide the leaders versus the laggards, and together the solution or what comes out would be phenomenal for the end consumer. And I believe therefore it is in the right direction. So I don't disagree with him that larger enterprises have to catch up. However, you would be amazed at the speed at which they are also towards catching that up. It will be seen in of course in the time to come. 6 months, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, that is something that the consumer will say. But coming back to, what the institutions are going through, Sharad, your question. Look, we are in a core transformation program ourselves, right? What we realized was the legacy of today, the legacy is not just, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, or 20 years, it is every 5 years, right? And we looked at our core insurance platform and realized that over a period of time, it has served its purpose. But it's probably not helping me go into the world where the consumer is demanding a product which is personalized for that person themselves, based on all the risks they have. So it's giving them a sort of a Lego build your own product kind of an experience. Is our core ready for it? So legacy technologies and legacy platforms, and I use word legacy with a lot of respect. Don't take it, that they have served their purpose. They have served their purpose. But are they ready for the agility? Are they ready for, kind of real-time experience? Are they ready for personalized build your own product problems? No, there are challenges. That is number one, right? Second, when you do all of this, can you do this at scale? Right? That's where the second fundamental issue comes. And I will not use, technical terms or technology terms. At the end of the day, I'm CIO, CTO, so I would love to use all the, techie terms, which I, continuously use, but not. This is the second challenge, right? Because I run my own PNL on the digital side. This is the second challenge that we see scale. The third is, over a period of time, a lot of, heterogeneous technologies have come into the enterprise. And look, we are regulated, right? So the biggest responsibility that we have is, of course, the data security, the fiduciary responsibility around, in our case, taking the premium, paying the claim, keeping all the data. Now, this does not, while it's a requirement, the speed of change, right, that we want to go forward with, right, it somewhere is a limiting factor. Therefore, what is the solution? The way we have looked at it is, there are two ways. One, you disrupt from within and you create a company within a company, right? You either create, departments within that, saying this has got a plain level, just a greenfield implementation, start offering the experience and offering and work it in a more a champion challenger model, and then plug that into the larger ecosystem of within the organization. That's one model, right? The second model that is there is, as I said, partnerships from outside, right? When I am able to think about the product, maybe bring in a fintech player, an e-commerce player, and work with them to co-create those products and solutions which are helping. So that's the second solution that we are taking. So net, the problems that we face are one is legacy, one is not just old technology. It's probably a mix of old and new, which we have to work cohesively in our entire ecosystem, and that's what the challenges we are going through. The good thing is, all institutions, whether it is Bajaj, Allianz General Insurance Company, whether it is any other in the industry within insurance and man, the realization has already come 3-4 years back.
That's right.
So what is happening is that at a phenomenal pace, people are moving forward. Of course, it's a journey. I mean, it's never done that, But the challenge, I accept what Nitin mentioned is, right, 6 months. If you don't do it, the consumer moves on, and which I completely respect from a fintech standpoint, coming from fintech, and we'll be up to it. So soon you'll see the industry, being up to it. Nitin, this is just my perspective.
No, of course, Saurabh. And we're just continuing on that point, right? not everybody will be able to transform themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that's the point I was alluding to. The death. See, organization will not disappear.
Yeah.
But organization's role will be reduced to balance sheet providers.
Correct.
And balance sheets are meaningful.
Correct.
Very few organizations will be able to transform themselves to become that customer-facing organization.
Yeah.
And to the point being discussed, right, I actually think that there are two aspects to any problem statement when dealing with the consumer, the back end and the front end. Right? The entire conversation started as a back end conversation. And what happens is, in this effort to solve for back end, reconciliation, security, people just keep focusing on back end. Front end is an afterthought, which is given to a project manager. That project manager then outsources that problem statement to a third party development firm.
Yeah. Consumer experience is not owned by the enterprise.
Yeah. Both of these are as important problems.
Absolutely.
So first of all, the focus needs to shift from saying, well, backend, first let's solve for backend, then we'll solve for front end. No, you need to solve for both at the same time. And a fintech is using the bank's backend only to create those magical experiences, right?
No. I think, let me tell you, Nitin, that is where I come in. You need the intermediaries to explain this one to the back end, and you need the intermediaries to basically explain to the front ends as well. This is where we come in. So we understand the problems of both the guys on this side as well as the other guys, which is where the omni-channel experience would be very different. Yeah, thank you.
And actually, I disagree with you, Mani. I feel that the core problem why the banks are not succeeding today is because they are not able to build engineering teams themselves. They're not able to attract that talent of high quality product managers and high quality engineers to focus on creating magical front-end experiences.
They are bankers. Please don't allow them to basically get into our job, please. They're supposed
and
to
if they don't do it,
companies has to do insurance. See, let me tell you, you said the word balance sheet. Let them handle the balance sheet. Let's handle technology and basically other services. Yes.
Exactly. If they don't do it, their role will be reduced.
They won't do it.
Let me try to intervene here.
It is up to the enterprise. It is up to the enterprise.
Let me try to intervene here. And let's talk about, from a consumer who is the real user for any of these services. What about, the seamless customer experience? We talk about using multiple channels of communication. And I clearly understand, I think training for the employees is one critical element, and definitely having right resources to manage that seamless experience probably is the fundamental problem. So let's hear from Mr. Nilesh Sangoi. What's your take on delivering seamless customer experience? Is this a challenge, or is this something which is managed well today?
No, that is certainly a challenge. If there was no challenge, then obviously there wouldn't have been a lot of new solution providers which should have come. So I would think that while there will always be room to work with a lot of ecosystem partners, but for the bank or for the financial institutes have to build their own capabilities in the areas of engineering, product development, and combination of front end, back end. Core will always, be not very flexible, because core has to be very stable. The way we make changes a lot on the front ends, and which we which gives us all the agility. If you try to do that at the core all the time, then core will become unstable. Here you don't generally go and say let's fail fast and just change the core. Core needs to remain stable, and that's why you need to build that layer around that core, which is the API layer, which is the microservices layer, which helps one to build your own front ends around that core, which are much more flexible and agile, or even expose that to your third parties, your partners, fintechs, or your some of the intermediary partners who can consume that and give that agility. So in the banking parlance, they call it system of records and system of engagement. So these, I think, is something that all of us will have to work in that. I mean, whether even a fintech, for example, tomorrow gets a banking license, they will also struggle with the core if they try to start making changes to the core every day in and day out. So
agreed.
That's the part I would probably just add here.
Absolutely.
And
Great.
I think the point was on the consumer side. Obviously, I think banks have to, or any institutes have to move forward from saying these are technical challenges. I think the challenges has to be only customer challenges, and tech has a solution for things today. I mean, sometimes because of regulatory lack of clarity, etc., banks did not embrace cloud at the speed what the new age institutes embraced. But today banks are moving forward very fast on that.
Yes, very
I,
fast.
I think that could help us make the back end and the tech as a given thing, like electricity, that you switch on a switch, you will get the electricity. Like that, the back end has to work seamlessly, fluently. I mean, without any. I mean, the way today we see, all the mobile apps, consumer apps, how seamlessly they work. Bank has to work as seamlessly as possible there.
Very well said. Uh, so just a thought. With this paradigm shift in technology, everything today is doable at kind of click of button. So customers no longer feel limited to geography and indeed have various options to choose from, especially coming from competition. So how do the banks or enterprises tackle this situation? So maybe Saurabh, you would like to start with.
Sure. See, I'll give an example on this. Let me start with the insurance world, where motor insurance is a commodity, right? If you do not get that, that consumer during either the time of renewal or they are buying, a fresh insurance, it's just a matter of few minutes, and you lose the consumer because there are enough and more competition available, and outside. I think how we are tackling that is one part of that is the experience, irrespective of where they come from. Now, this includes whether it is the traditional, branches, or they come through our website, mobile app, call center, any way, right? Or WhatsApp. Now we have the AI ML enabled bots. Any form, shape that you come in, we should know about what their experience with us has been, what their relationship has been, and at that instant be able to provide the product and service that they want. So one of the things that we're doing is being available all the time at the point of whatever sales or service that the consumer wants to. If that is not done, this is now table stakes. That is something that it has to be done. Number two, this is where I think the journey is still on in terms of what does that consumer want. And the reason I took an example is during COVID times, we realized that the cars or the vehicles, even two-wheelers, are standing at one place, right? It's not necessarily because of the lockdown and all, people are moving out. Do they really need to pay for the entire year's premium, or can we introduce something which is more pay-as-you-go kind of a model? Now, this is product innovation for the consumer who needs it, because the vehicle is obviously standing, right? And therefore, with the IDA, sandbox, we had put that product in the sandbox, got the approval, launched it on the on the digital channels, and saw a phenomenal response for that. Because we quickly consumed the entire sandbox, that experience. But again, going back to the fundamentals, the product was the need of the hour and was available at the time when the consumer needed it. So being able to quickly adapt. Otherwise, we would have lost that base, right? Who would have seen? Similarly, COVID insurance, right? Right at the beginning, when everyone was, not very clear whether it is an indemnity or a benefit. Later on, obviously, it got added to the overall health insurance. But first, initially, people were not even sure, right? What would it take? You'll be amazed, Sharad, at the kind of the policies that we have sold, in millions, wherein this is all that base who are first-time health insurance buyers coming in from tier 2, tier 3 or beyond. This we obviously on our platform and with our e-commerce partnerships that we have done. But what it proves is, if you have the product which is the need of the consumer, and provided at that point of sale and service, in their own way, right, they will be able to take it forward. So as you mentioned, one is from a consumer standpoint, be available and provide what they need, and and those that will solve their problems.
Thank you, Saurabh. I think it's very encouraging to hear, especially in the COVID times, people coming from tier 2 and tier 3 and able to actually take the insurance. So I think it talks about again the role of technology, and I think there I think your organization did fantastically well.
Yeah, and Sharad, I'll add before these are first time insurance buyers is very important because from a consumer, insurance penetration in the country. And what happens is no one gets up in the morning from an insurance standpoint, saying something bad is going to happen to me, and therefore, it's almost a product wherein you have to think about that something bad is going to happen, and therefore I need to protect. Coming from youngsters, coming from millennials, coming from first time insurance buyers, they are starting to use this. Banking comes very naturally, right? Insurance does not come that naturally. We keep talking about that push versus that pull, right? But this is that base which after unfortunately may have gone through that whole experience of hospitalization and all, are realizing the value of the insurance, and therefore you have more conscious, aware, insurance consumers in the country, which helps everyone, right, in the entire society and economy.
Thank you, Saurabh. I see Nitin Gupta being very eager to speak. I'm sure fintech, which is a fast-growing, doesn't require any boundaries, and would be more than happy that they have the entire universe to play with. So, what are your thoughts on this from a consumer standpoint? That they are free to choose any digital solution available without any boundaries.
That's what makes our life so easy, right? That day one we can be present everywhere. Customer just has to open the app. There's no physical limitation. There's no geography limitation. Nothing. And there's complete acceptance that when you are building a fintech business, right, at the back end, there is a partner which solves for regulation, which solves for core, provides those APIs, solves for balance sheet. All of those things are extremely critical. What a fintech does different is just that obsession about that customer need. It just zeroes in on a very, very point problem, sharp problem, right? Finds a customer segment which is large and underserved. And the beautiful thing about financial services business is that if you can find even a million strong customer segment, which is large and underserved, can create $1 billion business. Right? It then focuses all its energies in building the right solution for that customer segment. Leverages the bank or the insurance infrastructure, but solves beautifully for that customer segment and makes magic happen in the process. This is what makes us special, is that obsession about that customer. And we are not hindered by any limitation, barring regulation.
True. So considering the time in hand, I think I'll request Nilesh or Mani to share any use case you feel where you can enlighten all of us and the participants that how technology has played role and you were able to solve a problem. Like Saurabh mentioned that during COVID times they could sell and reach out to tier 2, tier 3 population and give them insurances. So would like to hear if you have any use case to share with all of us.
Okay. So, see, I think the way we spoke about challenges, I think the other way to look at is to look at opportunities.
Absolutely.
And I see one of the large opportunities which all of us have, including the established large financial players or the newcomers, is the next billion users. The bottom of pyramid, or the what we call typically financial inclusion customers, which have remained for decades outside our formal financial system, which did not have bank account for many decades, uh, did not basically have anything digital so far when it comes to finance. So that is a very, very large pot of gold available in for our country. I mean, not maybe for the many you know advanced countries, but in India, that is a big opportunity for few decades to come. If I think that's something that we can all look at and focus on, and solve problems for them, then I think that's a we there is no red oceans where we have to compete against each other, but there is a blue ocean available where a lot of opportunities exist. So we for example serve the microfinance customer, very large section of women customers more than 2.5 million customers at present we serve with a small micro loans. Those customers who have never done any banking, and we try and use as much technology as possible to provide them a doorstep banking service. And it's been largely been an experience right now on the lending side of the business, but we are trying to see how do we make it again the omni-channel 360-degree kind of experience, where it's not just about lending but every all financial needs how can be be attended to through a community banking kind of service. Like, our bank has a direct presence in 42,000 villages of this country. So how do we leverage that? How do we help them buy the appropriate insurance products, or help them, do micro savings, or so many other financial services? So that's, I think, something that we are working on, and trying to, use digital and technology as the catalyst to solve this problem.
Fantastic. So you mentioned a very valid point that I think you have the strength of reach. Now, given, I would like to ask, you have reach, you have presence, you have your banks in, tier 2, tier 3 cities. What kind of technology channels, I'll be specific, whether SMS, email, WhatsApp for business, which predominantly is being adopted today worldwide? Like I'm based out of UAE, and I see that major banks have actually gone ahead and deployed WhatsApp for business, and slowly and gradually they are pushing their customers to interact with the bank rather than bot over WhatsApp, and they are able to today get answers to the lot of questions. If I want to see my last 5 transaction, I want to see my account balance, it is just available on WhatsApp for business. I can do it, and I enjoy doing that because it's hassle free, at my convenience. I can do it at any point of time. Do you feel that India is ready for such solutions to be deployed, or already banks are taking some step? Is it the time to fast track and use this channel, which will give definitely consumer better reach, and they will also be interacting with the bank with a lot of queries, which in all will give business to the bank?
Yes, so I think this is very right example, and something that we've already done more than 2 years back, and we have also converted this WhatsApp for business into a natural language processing kind of thing with a multilingual option. So customer can not only chat in English, because you don't expect everybody to type and chat in English there, but they can do it in Hindi as well. So either they type text in Hindi or English, and completely in their own way, like mera balance kitna hai, mera EMI payment kitna hai, whatever they want to say, the bot will respond. I think that's a simple solution. Similarly, they can make payment over WhatsApp channel. Simple, they get a simple card saying that this is your payout, and there's a customized button called Pay Now, which they can click, and it will open one of the UPI apps. And you have the pop-up, or the whatever UPI apps available in that phone. Customer can choose, just put the pin in the UPI app, and the payment is done. No need to select even a loan ID or the amount. So these are absolute possibilities.
Thank you very much. I would like to pick up a question, or rather a comment posted here by Shiv Malik. Uh, he says omni-channel creation needs team with system thinking, know how to create a team with system view rather than silos view. Money, would you like to address this? I think we have last 2 minutes.
Yeah,
I see
I think,
Swati
in fact, I
coming
think you
in.
asked me for an example how we did with the experience there. I won't take the name of the bank. There were basically one bank we took, basically just studied the bank in terms of technology on the back end as well as the front end, and we did basically just implement a payment ecosystem, an enterprise-wise payment hub, or payment service bus, which could basically integrate with various channels on the banking side, whether it is cards, non-cards, UPI, and so forth, including SWIFT and remittances from Gulf. So that was a great experience to understand how the intermediary layer in the banking ecosystem is very important. And that is the need of the hour for most of the banks. One is the bank can invest in infrastructure and basically just build it in-house. One other is there are smaller banks, we can't afford to invest in this infrastructure. That is where they go to the service provider who can provide a similar, basically just enterprise-wise payment services hub, which can basically plug into any of these basically just channels that is required for the banking institutions or their customers to log on. Maybe I think it's many fintech companies, as Nitin was saying, you can have every other service, whether it's WhatsApp, X, Root Mobile, whatever it is services they could basically do. They could always basically plug into this universally without a problem. I think that should be the future of what is going to happen in this banking and financial services industry.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I think we are absolutely on time. So I think, Swati, it's time to wrap up.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thukral.
All right.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Thukral. And in fact, it was, great insights which was provided by all of you. I would like to thank all of you for joining in today and making this possible, and of course joining in for the Global FinTech Fest. I would like to even thank all our delegates to be a part of this session and participate and be there for Global FinTech Fest. I would like to ask them to stay back and stay tuned for other sessions which are lined up in this particular platform. Thank you so much once again, everyone, and stay tuned. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.